What is up, my YouTube family? It is Lucid Alvar here today with another video, and today we're actually going to be talking about Kenshi. Now, this is a huge thing that I think we might have missed. I'm not sure if anybody else knows about this, but a nice fellow in my Discord actually ended up finding it, and we ended up having a full conversation about it and all that good stuff, and it is a theory and what we might expect to see in Kenshi 2. So this is where we're gonna start. So let me start it right here with a little scriptures that we might have found in the game. So Republic of Tetris in the game files include the ruins of the Second Empire led by Catlon, but that doesn't mean it's the name of the Second Empire, but proof that other nations existed at the same time of the Catlon Empire. The evidence may prove my point is a book within a game written by Sabina, a member of the mechanics in the world, and she says, without a doubt, at least two very distinct cultures existed before our own. However, when these civilizations came into being is the question. On what evidence are we assuming that these civilizations existed at different times? And without a doubt, at different times, Y appears to have been intellectually inferior, but the similar tech levels clearly suggest that the two cultures did in fact overlap in history. Did these two civilizations war and destroy each other? Was one isolating itself and fleeing from the other? Judging by the relics and advanced tech from X, its culture was largely skeleton based. So right here, we're already seeing something of a little bit of a contradiction. So let's look back at this entire thing. So at the start it says the evidence may prove without a doubt at least two very distinct cultures existed before our own. However, when these civilizations came into being is the key question. On what evidence are we assuming that these civilizations existed at 7 different times? So she doesn't know if these both existed during the same time, but then she goes on to say that the similar tech levels clearly suggest that they overlap in time. So this means that you can't have it both ways. So Sabina is onto something. She's on like the tip of the tongue, like when you forget a word or something. She is literally right there. And I am not shitting you guys. Like, she's literally right there on the point. They had to exist at the same time, or else it would not make sense for her to even say that they would exist at different times. And if one was isolating itself and fleeing from others, judging by the relics and advanced tech from X, its culture was largely skeleton based. So we know that Civilization X has to be the Second Empire, and Civilization Y has to be this republic. So if we go into another book by Finch, so if we're to believe his theory, we can say that there was two nations that existed distinct changes in architecture and tech levels suggest multiple eras and downfalls throughout history. At the very last, we see evidence of two ages before our own. We have structures X's which are centrally scattered, and we have the Y structures that are kind of share some. They're like a little bit more spread out and everything, but what Finch is trying to say in this entire book is that pretty much Civilization X seemed to be very industrial heavy, and Civilization Y seemed to string on by something else. And this is something important here that that I overlooked, and then I started looking at this because I wasn't looking at it right at the start, but it started to make a lot of sense once you start piecing together a little bit of the lines. So I'm going to throw up a map up here for you guys. It's going to be what my good friend in the Discord did for you guys. He ended up outlining or drawing a line in between where, pretty much cutting in half the map of where the Republic would have been and where the Second Empire would have been, based on what the ruins suggested. Because the ruins are two separate things. Like, they're considered two different things in the game editor. And this was according to what he was telling me. He was looking at the game editor and he was seeing like two different type of things, and he ended up outlining everything. So this is the map right here. So if you're to look at this map, you see two things right off the bat. If you're a little bit of a theorist, you see that the Holy Nation is still intact right here, and then you also see the United Cities. And according that this was a republic, the United Cities by far is a republic. It's a fucked up one, but it's a republic. They all still choose a leader to represent pretty much them. And, even if the leader's under their complete control, it's still considered a republic. It's just more of a republic dictatorship. But, we were trying to decide where we would draw, where the capital would be. And we decided it would be in the cannibal capital, which at this time wouldn't be filled with cannibals. So this would be right there. It would be right there. And we have to assume that Catalan was already making his march all the way to the top to conquer them. Now, before I go into this theory deeper, let's take some scriptures from the Holy Nation. So, a new edition of the Holy Lord Phoenix, the fourth verses on he himself. When the darkness befell mankind, our benefactor sent us a guide. He created the phoenix from his own essence. The phoenix is not merely a man with a common soul. The phoenix is an extension of the Lord. His soul is divine, pure. It cannot be corrupt. The phoenix must always be the one guiding, wavering the flames. No other can receive our Creator's instructions. And now, a forbidden text within the Holy Nation, an ancient scripture from an unknown author. The great Father Churden was betrayed by his children, broken by their sins and their lack of faith, and so the great Father's power is diminished and calamity erupted. But only when the lands began to swallow themselves did the children plead for help. Only at a time of desperation and fear did their devotion burn its brightest. But the great Father was pure and forgiving, so he sacrificed himself for his beloved children to give them a new chance at life. He cleansed the planet of its sickness, but the task was too much, and Churden was split into two reborn, one of light and one of dark. Together, the two gods would exist in equilibrium. Okron, the god of day, warmth and renewal, and Narko, the god, the god of pretty much fuckery. And Churden was this guy. All right, this is going to bring me to my theory. Churden was this guy. So let's assume right here, right, that this is a republic. Let's assume Churden had kids, and Churden was the head of the republic, and he had a dynasty, and he was at war with these people, and he got betrayed. Think about that. Catalan wanted to reunify everybody. This makes more sense because, it seems like Catalan was an undisputed ruler from the start. There's no way that could have happened. There had to be somebody else that existed, right? Well, it looks like Churden might have actually been the person that Catalan was fighting. And now, when I say Churden might have been, you need to take a lot of things into context. Let's take this first. The only person's name that anybody remembers is Catalan. Catalan is that one name that everybody remembers for millennia. And now, if we're to assume this was to take about 1,000 years ago or so, then, how would they remember Churden's name if he wasn't so unimportant? Like, Catalan is literally important. They have a whole entire currency named after him called Cats. And, he was a really important person. But this guy right here, there's nothing about him that you can get other from this book. And now, you could throw it off as a bunch of mumbo jumbo, but let's go back to some very, very important parts. The first one is the great Father Churden was betrayed by his children. So assuming that he had a dynasty, right? This could be any type of republic, but say his kids held some land. So if his kids held land, then this could potentially actually be really tough for him because, say if it was in the United States, because the United States makes the most amount of sense, because there's no way that Catalan in a strategical way is walking up Venge and everything. So they would have to go up through Orkhan Valley. So let's say his children ruled in the United Cities. And they ended up saying, you know what, we're not going to fight this war with you anymore. We're done fighting this stupid war. We're going to lose and everything. And, they were broken by their sins and their lack of faith. So they had no faith in their father that he could win the war. And that's how his power diminished. And because he didn't have as much control, that's a huge chunk. And assuming that the United Cities right there was still as heavily dense as it is today, maybe like a little less dense, considering that it was a little bit further back in time, you know, it could have been a huge hit to this empire. And, you know, but not only when the lands begin to swallow themselves did the children plead for help. So not once until Catalan started destroying everything in his path to get to this and to reunify everybody did they start pleading for help for their father. And only at a time of desperation and fear did their devotion burn. So this could be referring to United Cities probably keeping their independence from Catalan, because there's no way that the United Cities gets taken over by Catalan, even if he walks up to that capital, because the United Cities still looks to be intact to this day. But the Great Father was pure and forgiving, so he sacrificed himself. So, you know, if anything, this could be referring to a battle, to something of him sacrificing himself for the United States, probably buying time for them to rally up troops or something like that. And, you know, once this happened, they ended up kind of idolizing this guy, Churden. Like, you know, that's what happens. You idolize somebody who sacrifices himself for the betterment of humanity. And they could probably be doing that with Churden, and they created him into Okran, the god of day, warmth, and renewal, and Narko, the god of night, cold, and destruction. And it's funny that they include destruction, because what was Catalan doing? He was destroying this republic that was founded on something. And now if you look at this map, you see two nations come out of it: the United Cities and the Holy Nation. So this means that this republic could be the birthplace of the Holy Nation. And the only reason I say that is because think about it. Right? Think about Bast. Now, this is tying another make-believe string to Bast. So, think about Bast, right? It's this place that a phoenix completely burned down and everything completely destroyed down to the ground. Now, why would a phoenix do that? Even if you're at war, why would you do that? That is completely immoral. It goes against a lot of what they say. I know a lot of people are going to say they're tyrants and shit like that, but think about it. This goes against a lot about what they say. And if you really, really look at it, there could be one actual thing that could be plausible truth. Is there a way that the Phoenix knows about what happened to the Republic of Tetris? Republic of Tetris. Think about that. That is like 1,000 years ago. But if the Phoenix, like, you know, the Phoenix has access to all the forbidden books and all the books that were ever written. So, if you really think about it, there is a slight chance that he knows what the United Cities does, and that's why he holds a deep, deep down resentment against them. Like, he resents them before that. And, you know, that's maybe like a really, really thin line to draw from there. But then you also have to look at it. Once Catalan ends up taking all this over and say that he doesn't get the United Cities because he just can't, because they probably beat him in a war, he was trying to expand and trying to enslave more humans, because he was testing on the Shek. He was trying to create the Shek to enforce the humans and everything like that. And if you really think about it, the Shek were probably starting to see that the skeletons are going to lose this war because it's a war of attrition. Humans can always reproduce, you know, like they can have more kids and keep throwing kids at them until there's nothing left. But the thing is that the skeletons can't do that. Once they die, they die. They can't reproduce their forces, and that is why I think the first or the second empire fell. This is a really deep like theory that could go any way, but my theory is that Churden is this guy that sacrificed himself. The United Cities ended up protecting themselves and ended up taking up a new name under the United Cities, and they ended up, like, you know, living on. And then once, you know, Churden had died, they idolized him as a god for the Orkanites, and then that's when you see the first Orkanites start coming together, and this guy that, let's not be real here, could have been a son of Churden, and said, I am the Phoenix, you know, like, I am like, you know, who you guys are supposed to worship, you know, let's go and, like, kick these people out because they're enslaving us, they're doing this, they're doing that. And the Shek probably saw that the skeletons were going to lose this battle of attrition, and they just said, we're out. And then that's how the entire empire fell apart. He only unified the entire continent, not even the entire continent, maybe like 90% of it, just so it could all fall apart. But you know, this is all just a theory. I know it's kind of a little bit of a longer video, but hopefully you guys did enjoy. Remember to leave a like, subscribe. Remember, we're on our road to 1,000 subscribers. We're almost there, guys. Anyways, peace.